What up, traders? What up, investors? Ken here from Dyslexic Investor, and thank you for tuning in for another fantastic video today. We're going to be talking about Tesla. We had a crazy day due to after its earnings, a very large drop. We had Jim Cramer give it its blessing on being a little bit more a greater outlook on it and being more positive spin on it. That's kind of scared a lot of people on the online community. If you're not familiar with it, there's this ETF and a lot of inverse of whatever Jim says. It goes the opposite direction. But on the side note, today, Tesla did find some kind of a bottom in the short term. Not going to be considering this a hold yet because it's only basically 2 days ish after the earnings. You can see here on the daily side here, we're coming in, of course, that large gap down going from Tuesday and to Wednesday here, and then today has closed at Thursday. The green candle did not close above that previous downward trend line or downward trend candle that we broke around 225. So keep that in mind. You can kind of see here, we kind of slightly filled the gap here from basically the beginning of the month, from the first to the second here, kind of making that 4th of July run that we had Tesla see basically from that 177 all the way up to almost 265, 260. Yeah, it was almost 270, sorry. So that gap is somewhat filled, not completely. It is, again, 2 days holding here does not mean next to nothing. We are looking at this again. This is the 50-day here, the yellow line. So we want to see if that can continue to hold. That's going to be somewhat of our guardrail going up. But I think that this is an opportunity to look at it. If you haven't got a chance for it, definitely take a look. But we wanted to cut to Jim Cramer's take on it. So we'll go ahead and just jump into that here.
Last night, I was reading through this Tesla conference call for a second time because it was so meaty, and my wife called. She said I sounded down, and I admit I was really bummed. I told her that the source of my chagrin was none other than Elon Musk. What did he do this time, she said. She thought it was something political. I said, he didn't do anything. I just knew that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how hard I studied, I could never be as smart as this guy.
Amen.
Even watching Tesla fall 12% today, it's impossible for me to appreciate the schadenfreude. Why? Okay, allow me to unburden myself to you, because it's the only way to understand what Musk has got going for him. First, understand that last night's conference call was like nothing I've ever heard, even from Tesla. The auto business, the plain old Tesla, disappointed people. They aren't selling as many cars as we thought. They aren't doing anything overtly revolutionary. No 2-minute battery charge the time it would take to fill an SUV. No engine that can give you 600 mile per charge. But it wouldn't surprise me if Musk actually cracks the code for both of them. Instead, he's wowing us with talk of the most advanced humanoid robots in the world. He thinks that the long-term value of Optimus, his robot initiative, will exceed that of everything else Tesla has done, and it will be worth trillions because we all will want a robot. You got to wonder how much of that is
I want
real.
a robot.
Even if a fraction of that humanoid robot story comes true, shareholders will make fortunes. Then Musk talking about autonomy and the joys of the fully self-driving vehicle that he thinks will soon be ubiquitous in every country, including ours. Sounds preposterous? Musk says, and I quote, "If you've got billions of miles that show that in the future unsupervised full self-driving is safer than human, what regulator could really stand in the way of that?" End quote. He argues it will become
That's been the case for some time.
own fleet, kind of like an Airbnb on wheels. He's betting autonomous driving could be a $5 trillion business. And then there's Tesla's energy business, specifically the energy storage backlog. This quarter, energy storage.
This is a highlight. This is
giving
interesting.
Record results small, but doing incredibly well. Plus, while Musk called out NVIDIA as a darn good manufacturer of high-end chips, he wants to go against NVIDIA, too, because he can't get enough of their best semis. I believe it, but not anytime soon. Now, the irony is, despite Musk's best efforts, today was a day when people said Tesla's just a car company and nothing more. Doesn't have anything near-term that can justify the stock's current valuation. He told a great story in the call, but nobody cared and gave him the downbeat environment for the mega caps, of which he has one of them. Perhaps you have to buy this week just because of the future, which seems very bright. I actually think that it makes sense, at least as a place to start buying. What matters is that you have to wait. You have to be patient.
Patient. Trades
are in short supply on Wall Street. As I see it, the key risk with Tesla was that Musk might leave over his pay package. Now that he's staying, I recognize that he's just better than everyone else when it comes to envisioning the future. Perhaps with the sole exception of Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, who is also, by the way, a lot more fun to hang with. So Musk bankable, and the rotation out of the Magnificent Seven could give you a chance to put his genius to work for your portfolio, and it's probably right here worth taking.
That was great, right? That was fantastic. That was Very well said. Very objective oriented, very fact based. I think Jim Cramer, great job, buddy. Great job. That was excellent. That got me motivated there. Um, but yeah, so Tesla, we all know it Elon shoots from the hip. Anything can happen, but I think in the long term, you have to understand, and how I see it from my optimism, my point of view, is that I think Tesla is going to be cracking the code in a lot of these things. Because if we go here just a further out to like the weekly side here, it's still kind of coming back from that level that most people were kind of like somewhat worried about, of it finally breaking out. It is below that line here again, that downward trend line that we've seen for basically the high of November of 2021. And it's kind of trending below that. Um, Nothing to really write home about that there, but just keep in mind that if this wants to continue to break out, which I hope it does. I don't know. I can't tell the future. I don't have a crystal ball yet. Um, but yeah, this is something definitely that's on my radar. Speaking of radar, we talk about NVIDIA. NVIDIA, has been still, I get a lot of folks saying that is the AI bubble about to pop? Is it Dunzos? I don't think so. I highly doubt it. Yes, there is some selling going on here in Nvidia, still slightly holding up. It is past the guardrail, but this candle here shows fairly strong here. At the same time, to note is look at the volume down here. There aren't like very large red selling outside days compared to what we're seeing the past like 2 days, and even last week we had that pretty large selling going into. This is it's holding up for now. It's holding up. Another one that's actually holding up pretty well is Apple. Tim Cook and Apple Incorporated over there, they're actually doing slightly better than Nvidia because it is still above the 50 SMA here on the daily side here. It is slightly trending lower here, but and if you can't see the trend line, we can show that right here, basically going lower here. So we're just going to kind of put that out as a guardrail. If it can break through that, a falcon punch into that yellow line and pop through that, that would be grand, fantastic. With the new product lines coming out, incorporating OpenAI or some kind of large language model or some kind of I know they talked about partnering with OpenAI, but they kind of left it open to that anyone could fit into that box there. And then if you look at the same time, look at that volume. Same thing like Nvidia. We're not seeing these very large spike ups in volume on the daily side, so there isn't any of that panic selling quite yet. Again, things could happen, things can become worse, and so forth. Talking about a name that did fantastic, ServiceNow. Did you see this thing pop up? This thing had a great earnings. This thing kind of was like kind of somewhat left for dead. Let me just zoom out here. This again, the daily side here broke above 800, and this is a lot of this is substantial because ServiceNow is one of those folks where people were kind of not giving it a chance because they're like, oh, they talked about incorporating AI and some of the capabilities, but they're actually doing it. And then seeing the chart pattern corroborate with the overall movement here, still kind of bouncing off that 50 SMA here and seeing that huge volume up. Look at that volume. This is a outlandish amount of volume. Normally trading between like what is that 1.8 to 1.7 million shares. It traded nearly 3 times that amount to around 6.5 million shares today, and that's a huge pop up. More money flooding into ServiceNow, so that's definitely one I was trading today. One other one that we've talked about on the previous video from Tom Lee, IWM. He's talking about IWM, the small caps, realizing that we're going to potentially be moving up in the next 10 weeks 40%. That's insane, right? And right now it's just kind of holding ground. We do have some Fed stuff coming out tomorrow, potentially talking about some rate cuts. The former St. Louis Fed chair said that they're going to be cutting in this month and maybe even more in September. I have a hard time always keeping track of these hooligans saying these kind of things. Yes, rate cuts will be good in the sense, but I believe that that's going to impact the IWM for sure. Um, that being said, with these rate cuts, what I mean by it's hard to track, again, the beginning of the year, they were saying 6 rate cuts, 7 rate cuts. Then they went to zero, like like Mayish or even April, Mayish. And now they're back to 4 or 5. Like it's too hot and cold for me. There's not a nice like dimmer switch. It's just on and off. So just be mindful of that. That could whipsaw a lot of people. It's not like a factual statement that once if people say these things, it's going to happen. It's just you have to wait, sit and wait. So it's always just to kind of just let the price action take you to the promised land. With the IWM trade, we're going to be looking at one that is you probably remember from the crisis with the Silicon Valley Bank. If you were around trading that, basically the beginning of 2023, we had issues with Silicon Valley Bank that put a lot of stress on a lot of the regional banks, the smaller banks. We're not talking the large financial banks like your Bank of America, JP Morgan, and those folks in Citi. These are the small regional banks. Okay, these are your ones that do a lot of the lending, that are more regional based, that have a couple handful of branches, and they do more investing really rather than just being more of a retailer, in the sense of of more loans and so forth, and smaller businesses impacting. This is why we're seeing it kind of pop out today. By today, I mean the last couple days, due to the influx of IWM popping out. This has kind of been popping up above $52. We're seeing it very strong. Again, this is a little bit different. You're seeing a lot more green coming in, right? A lot more volume to push it up. It's continue going higher here. Would you consider this extended? Potentially. It is again trading well above the 10 SMA here, and again the 50 SMA is way down here, quite a ways away, which is a pretty large guardrail. Again, we're talking about banks here. We're not talking about a crypto here. That's a pretty large outsized move. But Tom Lee saying that IWM could do about 15% just in the month of August. So that's going to be quite impressive there. So that's where we'll see that definitely try to reach up to that 245, 250th range, over the next like 4 weeks. So, guys, thank you from the top of from the bottom of my heart, from the top of my head, all to you. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.